You're the guy people call when they need a helping hand, moving furniture, unloading a truck. But lately, your shoulder's been acting up, and you're the one who's calling for help. And that's the moment you realize you can no longer shoulder the load.
The Joint and Spine Center is Cincinnati's leading destination for orthopedic care with a range of surgical and non-surgical treatments. So when a moment has the power to change the rest of your life, go to the one place with the power to change it for the better, the Christ Hospital Health Network. This changes everything.
The Pound This Podcast is brought to you by the Christ Hospital Health Network. This is the Pound This Podcast, episode 558, the Daily Weigh-In. How do I get started?
I want to lose weight, but I don't know how to get started.
What should I meal prep every week?
How do I get those sweet booty gains?
Inspiration for your healthy lifestyle. The Pound This Podcast with Amanda Valentine.
Thank you so much for listening to the Pound This Podcast. I am Amanda Valentine, and this is the Daily Weigh-In, where I take your questions, mostly from my Instagram page. You can always follow me at You Can Pound This, or you can always shoot me an email, amanda@amandavalentinebites.com, and I will answer those to the best of my abilities. And if I can't answer them, then I will find a podcast guest that can come on and give you an answer. An example is, in the past week, I got a question saying, hey, how do I lose this baby weight? I'm having a hard time after I have my baby. And I'm like, you know what? I personally have no kids. I have no place answering that question because I don't know. So I reached out to some amazing ladies that have the answer of that. They're the experts in that. And I am going to have them on the podcast next week. So see, if you got questions, I work to the best of my abilities to get you the answers. Now, this is a question I get asked a ton, and I know that I have answered this many times in the, almost freaking 600 episodes of this podcast. So if you've heard me answer this before, maybe I'll answer it differently now because, we're a new human every single day, especially in 2020. I think we've all aged several years. But the number one question I get asked is, how do you get started? And I know that I've answered the question for me, how I got started, a lot of times on this podcast. And then it's like, well, how do I get started? You know what I mean? Like someone that is not me. And I'm going to say my best broad stroke answer to that is, I think that some of the things to look at is what you've done in the past and kind of think about what works and what doesn't. Because I guarantee you, well, not guarantee you, but I would think more likely than not, if you're listening to this podcast, you have probably attempted to lose weight before or get healthy or fall off the wagon. It feels like we've all stopped and started. I know so many people that I've talked to personally started their first diet when they're like 9. So, we probably all have some sort of experience, and it's like, well, how do I get started in a way to accomplish my goals without falling off track? And if you're that person right now, I'd say then look at what you did in the past and looked at the things that you really enjoyed and the things that you really hated. And that's a good starting mark. You know what I mean? Of like, you know what? I went carb free and I was miserable to be around. Like I was just angry. I was hangry. I was not happy. Then maybe be like, so I need to work carbs in and then have a relationship with carbs moving forward. So you'd be like, I can get started knowing I can't cut that out, or fat or whatever it is. It's just carbs is the easy go-to. I have a weird relationship myself with carbs. So it's kind of seeing what's kind of failed in the past, what has worked, what you really like. Did you really like working out with a friend? Like you kind of need that accountability buddy. Then get started with the things that you know that you like. Or I've always wanted to try this, but I've been kind of afraid. Well, let's try it and see if we like it. Outside of that, I would say also I'm such a big believer of just small, sustainable steps. So it all depends on what your goals are. Why this is hard because every single person has different goals and where they're at. So broad strokes, I think that we all want to, eat as healthy as possible and fuel our bodies as best as possible and be hydrated and get enough sleep and all that stuff. So it's like, well, just get started by noticing one of the things that you find problematic. Maybe it's that you don't drink enough water. You just pound coffee or Monsters all day, or you're drinking Diet Coke or whatever it is. And you're like, I know I need to drink more water. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean like weight loss. It doesn't have to be that. It just be like, I know I feel better when I drink more water. How do I drink more water? So then make that the way to get started. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I need to get started. I'm going to completely overhaul my eating. I'm going to completely overhaul my exercise. It can be something as small as, how do I just drink an extra glass of water a day? Or how do I drink one less Monster? You know what I mean? And if you're looking for hydration, I just did an episode a couple weeks ago. Go back and you can find that. But you know what I mean? Just like those small steps of like, or maybe I just want to get 10,000 steps a day. Like the goal to get started isn't be like, I need to be super hot. I need to be Instagram model. I need to be this before and after picture. It's just, what are the things that you really want? Like, do you want to feel better? Do you want to feel more just active and more energy? Like whatever those things are, kind of think of where is a small place you can get started. The water, the sleep, make sure you're off your phone for like an hour before bed. God, I have such a problem with that. And I do have somebody I'm going to be talking to, a sleep expert at the Christ Hospital. That's an episode that's going to be coming up in the next month, which I think all of us have been having some sort of sleep issues in 2020, whether we can't fall asleep, we can't stay asleep, we're sleeping too much. I have found myself sleeping too much, which is very odd for me. I've always been, I did morning shows on the radio for freaking ever, where I would get like no sleep because I'd have to wake up at 3:30 in the morning. And just last night I slept for 12 hours. I'm like, 12? What is wrong with me? Am I like a teenager now? 12 hours, my God. And so it's like, I guess I needed it. Dang. You know what I mean? But that's not normal for me. Normally when I'm sick is whenever I sleep like that. Not just a normal day, but whatever. 2020 be wild, right? And so it's just those sorts of things of, I would just lay out your why. Why are you thinking you need to get started? You know, what do you want to get started on? Is it weight loss? Is it just becoming more physically fit? Is it becoming more mentally fit? Is it just, whatever those things are, and then kind of break down what you feel like your problem areas are, where you excel, and then just make tiny little incremental changes for that, which is also my advice too for changing the way that you're going to eat, which I know is probably a lot of where this question is stemming from, where I get started with my food. And I think that all depends on the person and what your issues around food are, because we're all so different. For me, I'm a binge eater, emotional eater, and my God, 2020 is just... it is just taken a huge punch to my face of trying so hard to revert me into so many things that I have worked on for years of my relationship with food. And food ultimately for me is just coping and comfort. And, as everything just seems to be getting worse instead of better, not to be like a half glass full bummer here, but this year sucks. I'm really fighting hard of where I just want to rely on food to make me feel better. And, that's my issue. And that's something that I have to work on. So my small steps of that, of like, I know that. So what's a healthier coping mechanism for me that makes me feel more calm or in control? Is that just going for a walk? Is it slamming a bottle of water? Is it calling a friend? Is it, just anything? And do I need to pick up crocheting or something? You know what I mean? Of just like looking at who you are, where you're at right now in this moment, not what you've done in the past that, again, like look at those things of what worked and what didn't, but don't try to just recreate the past. You know what I mean? Of like, this exactly worked for me before, but really it didn't. Otherwise you wouldn't be asking this question again, right? So don't try to just completely revamp that old life. Am I making sense here? And try to just use that same blueprint now, because ultimately you're going to have that same outcome. So take the pieces of what works, what doesn't, where you're at in this moment, where you find your problems and strengths are, and and move from there. And so with the food, it's just like, okay, so maybe you're like, I go out to eat too much. Like I personally feel bad about hitting the drive-through too many times. So then you walk that back of like, okay, well, for me, I'm a fan of small changes. So it's like, well, maybe if I have eradicated fast food, that might be too much for you. Then that seems like prison and it sucks. So then maybe just walk it back once or twice a week, or have a snack prepared, or have a dinner prepared, or something that can alleviate that one issue for the day. You don't have to fix everything in one day. If you feel like everything is a problem, why don't you just start with like, hey, let me fix this one thing. I'm never prepared for snacks during the day. I'm hungry. I'm so hungry I want to chew my arm off. And so then when I am around food, I go nuts. And so then it's like, okay, well, let me just prepare snacks then. Let me have a snack plan and work on that. And if you are doing that for a few weeks and it's feeling good and it just becomes part of your routine, then let's focus on the next thing, right? And then it's like, okay, well, what else is something that I would like to go a little bit better? And then do that. But that doesn't work for everybody either. Some people, and I go between both, between the small changes help me a lot, but I also tend to be an all or nothing sort of thing. So for me, fast food was such a problem for me at first when I decided I was just going to be the best version of me possible, make the best decision in every moment. I'm like, I can't make a good decision in a fast food restaurant. It's like, I just couldn't at the time. And I knew that. I recognized that I can't just go there and make a good decision, because I feel like if I want to go there, I want to get what I want. You know what I mean? And so I chose to just completely write that off. And right now I have not had fast food for almost 8 years. That's extreme. That wasn't the plan. But I'm just saying that recognize what things work for you and what doesn't. For me, that was a personal choice for me, and that worked for me. And then I'm like, oh, I got to keep the streak going. Once I could have a healthier relationship with fast food, I decided not to bring it back into my life because I enjoyed my life without it. You know what I mean? So that was a decision. And then plus I'm like, just keep the train rolling at this point. I'm like, I don't really miss it and I don't really need it. So maybe some things in your life need to get that huge hard axe gone because you can't regulate it. It all depends on the person. Or it's one of those things of like, oh my God, I can't live without it. Let me just see if I can walk it back a little bit. And what can I replace it with that still makes me happy? Like if you're taking away McDonald's and replacing it with broccoli, that's a crap trade. I mean, honestly, if you're talking about flavor and lighten your brain up and feeling about comfort food, if you're making the hard transition to some chicky nuggies and sweet and sour sauce and fries to steamed broccoli, are you going to stick with that? Are you going to feel happy that you've eradicated tasty fries out of your life and replaced it with broccoli? Probably not. So it's like, how can you make a way to balance them both? And it doesn't have to be either or. And I think that's the danger zone we come into with so many diets or weight loss or whatever. It has to be this, black or white, this or that, good or bad, and then just hung up on myself. I'm so guilty of the same thing. I'm hung up on the wrong reasons sometimes of like, oh, I want to look hot. I want to look skinny. And that can be a great goal to have if that's what you want. But to feel pressure that that's what you should want is not a good thing. And God, we could go into a whole podcast about all that. But it's also, just being, if you just want to feel better and have more energy, there's a lot of things that you can do to balance and trade that off of not like, oh, I need to starve myself because I have to look a certain way. You know what I'm saying? I hope I'm making sense here. I'm just kind of rambling. That's what happens when you just let me go. I'll just keep, if I'm here by myself, I'll just keep rambling all the time. But, and I would say that, if you do have a lot of issues with, and I do, and I have a therapist, and this is why, with body image and food and a lot of things from childhood and trauma and stuff like that, I've built this really kind of crazy relationship with food that I would absolutely 1000% recommend seeking someone out to help you with that if you feel like you can't figure that out on your own. And there's a lot of great resources, and I'd be happy to share some with you. You can always shoot me an email, Amanda@AmandaValentineBites.com. And maybe that's what you need to get started, is just to have somebody to talk this through. You know what I mean? Of just, can somebody just please understand me? Because I feel like so alone. And it's so crazy that we're so connected online now, but it still just feels so super alone. Sometimes, I'm not saying all the time, but it can feel like, oh, well, I have a question, but it's intimidating. And I'm the only one that feels this, because everyone that I follow online, like, they look like they got it figured out. Like, man, here's their exercise routine. Here, they're eating this food. They seem to balance, like, parenthood with the job and their fitness routine, and everybody's posting all this stuff everywhere. And you're like, well, God, I'm like, what's wrong with me? Of like, how come I don't have it figured out? And hey, man, we all know this. It's online is not always for realsies. That's why it also feels alone, though, is everybody's posting their highlight reel and the best ofs. And whenever you're feeling down or not knowing where to start or what to do or how to feel, and it feels like that there's those people like don't understand you. You know what I mean? Or maybe that's just me. Maybe that's my own just stuff that's stirring around in my head, but I feel that too. So that's where I'd say that, absolutely there are other people feeling the way that you do. No matter what you're feeling right now, I guarantee you there's other people that feel the same way you do. And there's people that want to help and to talk it out. And again, if you feel like you don't have any of those resources, from me doing this podcast for almost 3 years now, 2.5, 3 years, dang, I have met so many amazing people and know so many amazing resources for, trusted people that like have your best interest. If you need to talk about meal planning, or talk about exercise, or talk about mental health, anything, wellness, anything. So I would absolutely say part of the answer to the question is where, how do I get started, is just ask for help, there ain't no shame in that. And I have felt super ashamed so many times in my life that I didn't. And I wish I would have. And that's why I started this podcast, to hopefully be a resource so nobody feels alone in this, because it feels like we all feel some degree of all this, but it's just nice to know that, somebody gets you and has your back. You know what I mean? So I hope that answered the question of how to get started. I know I gave no specifics that I'm sure a lot of people were hoping for. Like, just tell me what to eat, damn it. How often do I exercise? Give me all the answers. And man, do I wish I had them. I wish I had them for myself. But, it's hard, again, with the podcast, it's broad strokes where it's not individualized. So that's where hopefully this gives you some sort of guidance. And if you're looking for more honed in advice, that's where I'd say definitely reach out for help. But I do want to say that if you are looking to get started and just being healthier, being your best self, feeling good, feeling comfortable in your own body, all of those things that you 1000% totally can. You've got this. I don't care if you have failed 100 times. I have too. You got it. And you have it in you. And if you want those things for yourself, you absolutely can have them and get them. Is it going to happen on the timeline you want? Probably not. Is it going to be easy? Oh, no. It will not. And so but you're worth it, right? Like, we get this one life. And don't we want to live it feeling our best and being the best version we can of ourselves? I mean, I know that's one of the things that drives me. And it's like, yes, especially in a global pandemic, like, don't we want to care about our bodies and taking care of our bodies? And that includes mental health, everything. And so you absolutely can do those things. You are absolutely worthy of those things, and you can accomplish it. And and I just hope that, even if you do give up, that's fine. It doesn't make you a failure either. You'll find it again. we all go through our quote unquote seasons, right? And I think that I've learned this lesson the very hard way too, that you can't just live in one season all the time. Just because you had a great season doesn't mean you just get to live in that forever. Like, life has its ebbs and flows, and the down times make you appreciate the good times and all that other, motivational calendar stuff. But it's absolutely true. So if you're in a space of like, why can't I get this figured out? I've done this before. I'm in a slump. Then it's just part of it. And I think that when you kind of let that go of like, it's part of it, you know what, this will work itself out. It'll figure it out. I'm still driven. I still want this for me. Like, it'll come. You know what I mean? And even if you completely throw in the towel and you walk away for 2 years and you don't care anymore, F it. And you're just like, you know what, I really want to focus on my health again. Come on back. And you know what? Nobody is going to crap all over you as hard as you're crapping on yourself for like, oh God, well, I gave up and people are going to judge me. Everybody is worried about their own life. Don't worry about it. You're fine. You got this. You forever got this, no matter how many times it takes you, and you're worth it. So I'm going to stop rambling now. Again, if you ever have any questions, Amanda@AmandaValentineBites.com. You can follow me on Instagram @YouCompoundThis. Would really appreciate if you could share this podcast, this episode in particular, any episode that's ever helped you with friends, groups that you're in, whoever else you might feel need it. Sharing this podcast is super, super helpful for me. Let me be honest. And if you could write a review and all that, and hopefully it's positive, and leave ratings and all of those things that you don't think make a difference, do make a difference. So if you're looking to throw your girl a solid over here, that would be awesome if you could do that. I appreciate you. I'll talk to you later.
For info on health coaching and more, go to AmandaValentineBites.com.